Welcome to the channel where medical topics are made easy. This video will explain how to place a 12-lead ECG and its electrodes. We're going to use a mnemonic that makes 12-lead ECG placement easy for EMTs, paramedics, nursing, and more. So let's get right into it. A 12-lead ECG uses 10 electrodes, which are the sticky pads placed on the skin. Be aware that electrodes and lead wires are not the same as leads. So many people get this wrong, and we're going to explain this in a minute, so keep watching. This will also explain why a 12-lead ECG uses only 10 electrodes. So again, a 12-lead ECG uses 10 electrodes. These 10 electrodes can be divided into two types, the limb electrodes and the precordial electrodes. The limb electrodes are placed on the extremities, and there are 4 of them, and the precordial electrodes are placed on the chest, and there are 6 of them. So what exactly do all these circles and colors represent, and what do all these definitions mean? We're going to go back to this diagram in a minute. But first, let's clarify some definitions because a lot of people get this wrong, so do not skip this part. In order to obtain a 12-lead ECG, 10 electrodes are placed on the skin. Electrodes are the sticky pads that are placed on the body in certain positions. The electrodes allow the electrical activity of the heart to be recorded. The lead wires are wires that are connected to the electrodes, and they transmit or send the heart's electrical activity to the ECG machine. The lead wires are typically color-coded, and they need to go in the correct position. The 10 electrodes create 12 different views of the heart, and the electrical activity of the heart is recorded from those 12 angles. And these 12 views of the heart are the 12 leads you see on the ECG. So a lead is a recording or view of the electrical activity of the heart from the angle of that particular electrode. Some of the electrodes communicate with each other, which is why there are 12 different views or leads from only 10 electrodes. Now that we know the definitions, let's go back to our diagram. So the circles you see are the electrodes, and the colors represent the color of the lead wire that connects to that electrode. But how do you remember where to place all the different electrodes and lead wires? Well, let's walk through a memory trick mnemonic that will help you remember exactly where to place them. Starting with the limb electrodes and lead wires, these are the ones that go on the extremities, and there are 4 of them. First, you're going to remember white on the right. This will help you remember the white lead wire, which is the right arm, goes on the right side. You'll place the electrode on the right arm, typically above the right wrist, and then you'll connect the white wire labeled RA for right arm. Then use clouds over grass to remember white, which is clouds, goes over green, which is grass. We already know the white lead wire is the right arm, so the green lead wire is the right leg. You'll place the electrode on the right leg, typically above the right ankle, and then you'll connect the green wire labeled RL for right leg to that electrode. Next, you'll use smoke over fire to remember black, which is smoke, goes over red, which is fire. The black lead wire is the left arm, and the red lead wire is the left leg. You'll place the left arm electrode on the left arm, typically above the left wrist, and then you'll connect the black wire labeled LA for left arm. You'll place the left leg electrode on the left leg, typically above the left ankle, and then you'll connect the red wire labeled LL for left leg. Again, many people call these limb leads. These are not leads. They're electrodes and lead wires that are used to get the limb leads. The limb leads are what you see on the ECG that are derived from these limb electrodes and lead wires, and they're labeled different on the ECG. I wanted to point out that you may see some literature and studies suggesting that you can put the limb electrodes anywhere on the limbs, as long as both sides are symmetrical with each other. However, studies have suggested changes to the ECG morphology the more proximal the electrodes are placed on the limbs, so make sure to follow your ECG and institutional protocols. Now that we know where to place the limb electrodes and lead wires, let's move on to the precordial electrodes. Remember, these are the ones that are placed on the chest, and there are 6 of them. The lead wires are labeled V1 through V6, and you can use the mnemonic Ride Your Green Bike on Pavement to remember the order of the colors. The R for ride is to remember V1 is red. The Y for your is to remember V2 is yellow. V3 is green. V4 is blue. V5 is orange. And V6 is purple. There's also another memory trick you can use, so keep watching. But first, let's look at exactly where to place the precordial electrodes. This is important, so don't skip it. Starting with V1, you're going to place the electrode in the 4th intercostal space right of the sternum. You'll then connect the red lead wire labeled V1. Use ride in the mnemonic to remember V1 is red. Remember the left leg was also red, so make sure to always check the lead wire labels. Next is V2. You'll place the electrode in the fourth intercostal space left of the sternum. You'll then connect the yellow lead wire labeled V2. Use your in the mnemonic to remember V2 is yellow. Let's skip V3 and go to V4. You'll see why in a minute. You'll place the electrode in the fifth intercostal space mid-clavicular line. You'll then connect the blue lead wire labeled V4. Use bike in the mnemonic to remember V4 is blue. Now let's go back to V3. You'll place the electrode midway between V2 and V4. You'll then connect the green lead wire labeled V3. Use green in the mnemonic to remember V3 is green. Moving on to V5, you'll place the electrode in the fifth intercostal space anterior axillary line. You'll then connect the orange lead wire labeled V5. Use on in the mnemonic to remember V5 is orange. Finally, we have V6. You'll place the electrode in the fifth intercostal space mid-axillary line. You'll then connect the purple lead wire labeled V6. Use pavement in the mnemonic to remember V6 is purple. Here is one more memory trick you can use. First, you're going to use the colors of a traffic light to remember V1 through V3. V1 is red, V2 is yellow, and V3 is green. Then use the mnemonic BOP to remember B is for the blue V4, O is for the orange V5, and P is for the purple V6. I also wanted to make you aware of a modified version of electrode placement. You may see some literature placing the limb electrodes on the torso like shown in the picture. This may be necessary if someone has an amputated extremity or to reduce motion artifact if the limbs are moving a lot. Just know that studies have suggested potential significant changes to ECG morphology when the limb electrodes are placed on the torso. So if the limb electrodes are placed on the torso, it's good to notify the provider by writing torso position limbs on the ECG. Again, remember to follow ECG and institutional placement protocols. Here is a summary table reviewing everything. Remember, a 12-lead ECG uses 10 electrodes and 10 lead wires. 4 electrodes are placed on the limbs, and the limb lead wires that connect to these electrodes can be remembered using white on the right, clouds over grass, and smoke over fire. The lead wire for the right arm is white, the lead wire for the right leg is green, the lead wire for the left arm is black, and the lead wire for the left leg is red. 6 electrodes are placed on the chest, called precordial electrodes, and the precordial lead wires that connect to these electrodes can be remembered using the mnemonic ride your green bike on pavement. V1 is placed in the fourth intercostal space right of the sternum, and it's red. V2 is placed in the fourth intercostal space left of the sternum, and it's yellow. V3 is placed between V2 and V4, and it's green. V4 is placed in the fifth intercostal space mid-clavicular line, and it's blue. V5 is placed in the fifth intercostal space anterior axillary line, and it's orange. V6 is placed in the fifth intercostal space mid-axillary line, and it's purple. Hopefully this helped you understand how to place a 12-lead ECG. Please share this video with others and hit that like button and leave a comment. Subscribe to save time studying and not miss out on future videos, notes, and study guides. You can find all the flashcards, study guides, and notes linked down below. Thanks for watching and hope you check out future videos.